let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. China is currently enduring the horrible coronavirus outbreak, and the box office is shut down. I think this could hurt a Chinese box office for a long time and affect movies for the upcoming months. How big of a deal do you think the Chinese box office either being shut down or weakened will hurt movies like Mulan or Fast and the Furious 9? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, it feels like today there's just a whole lot of bigger issues than movies that just so happen to be crossing over with movies are coming up that we need to discuss. And yeah, so I'm sure all of you are very familiar right now with what's going on in China, but it's not just China anymore. But with this thing they're calling the coronavirus, thousands of people affected. Last I read, over 80 people have died from it. And they're moving quickly to try to contain this. And one of the things that has happened is that they have shut down movie theaters as one of the things. This comes to us from IndieWire. 70,000 movie screens across 11,000 complexes were shut down across China, where quarantine measures have affected millions of people and travel restrictions to and from the Republic remain intact. According to the current requirements for the prevention of the new type of coronavirus pneumonia in our province, theaters will be closed from now until the Spring Festival holiday. Each theater company should guide and urge its theaters to implement measures for refunds and suspension. An authority from the province of Guangdong, if I'm pronouncing that right, told Variety. And of course, that's a report that comes into us from IndieWire. First and foremost, much like the Kobe Bryant situation, one of the things that we should mention and acknowledge here is that this is a story that kind of reminds us about movies are movies. Life is life. And, you know, there are issues that are bigger, that are much bigger and go well beyond the idea of film and the cinema and all that kind of stuff. And this is definitely one of those situations where there are things more important than going to the movies. And of course, a massive health scare and health outbreak going on in China is absolutely one of those things. How will this affect things? Oh, it'll affect things massively depending on how long this thing stretches out. It'll absolutely depend. This was a report that actually just came out today on Variety. The Chinese box office wiped out as government expands virus response measures. China's moving very fast and hard to doing everything apparently they can to try to contain this whole thing. And part of that is they don't want people, being too transient going into movie theaters together because they've already proven that this thing can be passed from person to person. So they don't want a lot of strangers interacting with, and a lot of different things culturally are being shut down in China. Of course, movie theaters being one of them. How big of an impact this will have. And of course, let me restate, we all understand that this health problem in China is far more important than the movie business. We just I don't want to get any messages from people going, John, there are more important things than movies. I know, we're acknowledging that. These are things that are far more important. But for the nature of what this show is, where we do talk about the entertainment industry, we're going to narrow in our focus for just a moment and focus in on the issue about how this does indeed affect the industry we're here to talk about, while completely acknowledging this is a far more important and far bigger issue than just how it impacts our precious box office. Absolutely. But that is the nature of this particular show. We are here to discuss the movies, and therefore we're going to narrow in our conversation to how it affects the movie universe for now, acknowledging that it is a bigger problem. Okay? Have I given enough of an asterisk there to keep everybody happy? Okay. That said, the overall impact this coronavirus thing in China could have on the box office worldwide, obviously, like we just saw in Variety, it's already having an impact. It's already a big deal in China. It's shutting down the box office, basically, and that's a very huge thing. But long term, how will it affect movies like Mulan, which is expected to do well in China? How is it going to affect movies like Fast 9, which is expected to do well in China? The answer to that question, I believe, is completely hinged on something we don't have an answer for yet, and that is, obviously, how long does this get dragged out? Is this something that a week from now or 2 weeks from now, the Chinese government says, we feel like we've got a handle on this situation, we're going to ease things up and allow things to open up? If that's the case, then the overall impact on the year for Hollywood films and the movie industry itself is actually going to be fairly minimal. Certainly an impact, but probably fairly minimal. However, if this thing stretches well beyond that, and we get into months, well then yeah, this is going to have a chilling effect on the movie business and on the studios that a lot of these movies get made now, understanding that maybe the majority of their money is going to come from overseas. And of course, the biggest overseas market, the second biggest movie market in the world, is of course China. So that will absolutely have an impact and have an effect, depending of course on how long this stretches out. And really, that's what this comes down to. It comes down to that question that we simply do not have an answer for yet, which is, how long will this go? So we're going to have to wait and see, but I guarantee you, we as fans are not the only ones watching this. There are distributing company and studios and executives on every level that are watching and tracking what's going on in China with the box office there very, very, very closely for how it's going to impact them and their business. And we're going to have to wait and see. We're just going to have to wait and see. But of course, all well wishes and thoughts go to anybody who's touched by this whole thing right now. And here's hoping they get this under control pretty quickly. Guys, question is, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you think this is something they'll maybe wrap up pretty quickly and maybe it won't have that big of an effect on the movie business as a whole? Do you think this is something that could be prolonged and is actually really going to have a serious impact on this stuff? I want to know how you guys are thinking about this right now. Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right.